Thank you very much for taking time out of your day to attend this morning's webinar. It's a NATE course on air cleaners. We've got a lot to cover, and I do my best to keep this well under an hour. So let's go ahead and get started. We've got a lot of people signed in this morning. It's been the case for the last several, which is great, but unfortunately it does mean that I'm not going to be able to get to probably your question during the webinar. Please just submit them using the GoToWebinar tool, and I'll do my best to answer them as quickly as I can. We've been getting great attendance and lots of good questions, so it is taking me a little bit longer than it used to get them all answered, but I will do my best to get through them all. All right, let's get started here. So today, it's a NATE class, so I want to talk about static pressure and those kinds of things a little bit, but then I want to get quickly into air cleaners in general, and then specifically our air cleaner lineup. So when we're talking about air cleaners, of course, we're removing particulate from the air, whether that be for equipment protection or for improving the indoor air quality by removing pollen, mold spores, respirable dust, even as you get to higher and higher MERV ratings, bacteria and viruses. But what another important factor is the resistance created by that filter material, that media. That frictional loss or that resistance to airflow is what we call static pressure. And that's simply another thing, in addition to the ductwork and the way the duct's designed and the elbows and the branches and everything else, that increase the resistance to the blower being able to move the amount of air it needs to. So air filters are just another component of that static pressure. And so as we're talking about air cleaners, we'll make sure that you're comfortable with the fact that our air cleaners have very, very low static pressure, or pressure drop, as some people refer to it. I'm not going to get into the formulas. We've got enough to cover without getting into all that. But this is your standard, manual D definition of static pressure. This past summer, HVAC manufacturers had to switch from PSC blowers to ECM blowers, constant torque ECM blowers, DC motors. There are lots of energy advantages to this. This makes our case for putting in a high efficiency whole home filter with low static pressure an even more compelling case, because we can see a significant reduction in electrical consumption. Keeping that static pressure low is the best way to move the amount of air we need to give us good airflow, good heat transfer, and by keeping the blower wheel clean, keeping the A coils clean, by trapping stuff out of the air, we can give them that good heating and cooling efficiency that they bought their equipment for. Let's just play this video here.
Hey HVACers, Mark Marquillo here with AprilAire. Say, recently we've been talking to a lot of very successful contractors about why and how they include an AprilAire air cleaner on every install or every change out that the air cleaner fits on. They told us a lot of things that we knew, that it helps their customers by keeping their air clean and healthy in the home, and they talked about significant revenue on service calls. But really what bubbled to the top was a lot of these guys were talking about how putting an AprilAire air cleaner on every install really cuts back on callbacks.
We're seeing that these systems are lasting longer without any repairs, and when we don't have to go out and fix it, it's better for us, because that's a profit killer when we've got to go out there and warranty that system.
I'm always throwing a filter in with it. An AprilAire filter, 5-inch filter, is going with everything at first. Because if I'm going to stand behind it for 10 years, which is what I do with most of my equipment, I want it to be protected as much as possible for me and for them. If I've got to go back and do a warranty call at year 5, it costs me $200, $300 to go out there. And if they're running an AprilAire filter, I just have less breakdowns. And that makes me more money, and it makes them a happy customer.
AprilAire media cleaners, every job we do, goes on every system. I don't care what it is, geothermal, electric furnace, gas furnace, whatever it may be, It's better for us, it's better for the equipment, it's better for the homeowner. So it's a win-win. I don't even put it in the price, it's built into the price. It's part of the sale. Part of the system, and we explain why we put it on, and no one's ever said don't put that on. Never.
Wow, those guys get it. I mean, they are the expert. So let's take a second to look at the real simple technology behind airflow and air filtration. We all know that filters load up over time, and as they load up over time, that's where the serious increase in static pressure occurs. Now, if you look at this 1-inch filter, I mean, this thing is filling up after about 60 days to where it's actually unacceptable for static pressure. But if you look at the AprilAire MERV 11, I mean, this thing can load up well past a year and still have acceptable pressure.
We have done the studies on airflow, and the 1-inch filters, they restrict airflow, period. And you get 15, 30 days in on a 1-inch filter, it's really reducing the airflow, putting a lot of strain on systems, and it's just not the right thing for the homeowner. So everything is at least a 4-inch wide media AprilAire, and that is our standard today.
We always use the AprilAire 2210, and it's our standard filter. We don't offer a 1-inch filter. The 2210 is our standard filter because it protects the equipment and it's better for the homeowner in the home.
So, there's kind of a misconception out there that a larger filter with more surface area makes it difficult for the air to go through as opposed to a smaller filter. As a matter of fact, it's just the opposite. The more surface area you have for the air to go through, the air can go through with much less resistance. Our engineers call that media velocity, and we'll talk a little bit about how that works. If you think about it, take a garden hose with water trickling out of the end. Put your thumb over the end of the hose. Now what you just did is you decreased the surface area that water can go through, and you increase the velocity of the water coming out. But if you look at the back side of the hose with the water coming to your thumb, you just increase the pressure on the back side of that hose. That is exactly what happens when you put a 1-inch or a high restrictive filter on an air handler. The proof of this velocity concept is in the data on static pressure. Numbers don't lie. High efficiency filters are here shown against various 1-inch filters, whether it's a MERV 8 or a MERV 11 or even a MERV 16. If you take a 1200 CFM 3-ton system with an AprilAire 4-inch filter, whether it's a MERV 11 or a MERV 13, we're looking at pressure drops of 0.11 or 0.15 inches of water column, which are ridiculously low and certainly well below the 1-inch filters with similar or even higher MERV ratings.
So one of the things that we use this particular demonstration and setup for in our training room is to show our technicians, really to make them believe, hey, this is the difference in the static pressure drop between your standard 1-inch filter here and your media cabinet. So we can actually take one or the other out and measure the static pressure differences across the 1-inch versus our 4-inch media cabinet to really get our technicians to believe and say, wow, and you can actually hear the difference in the fan when you have the 4-inch media in versus the 1-inch media. So it really builds belief in our technicians that this is good for our customers.
Let's just make it real simple. Here's the top 5 reasons why you want to install an AprilAire air cleaner on every new system or every system changeout. Number 1, increased system protection, significantly increased over a 1-inch filter. Number 2, you maintain the efficiency of the equipment for the life of the equipment. Number 3, you have significantly less filter changeouts because the AprilAire filters hold so much more particulate. Number 4, you have happier customers. And I'll tell you what, happy customers mean referrals. And number 5, and probably the most important one, is you will experience a significant drop in callbacks. Callbacks eat profit. By eliminating callbacks, you increase your profitability and you also increase your happiness with your customers.
With spending that type of money on a system, it's important to make sure the system's protected so it's kept clean. We do use a high efficiency filtration through AprilAire because it is the right thing to do. It's protecting the investment for the homeowner, which is very important to us, and it's a reoccurring customer for us. I mean, they're telling others about the over and beyond that we do as a standard for customers, and they share that with their friends and relatives. So it's great for us, it's great for customers, and it's the right thing to do.
All right. I think that actually covered a lot of the things that I would normally cover, so that's good. That worked out nicely, and you got to hear it coming from some contractors instead of just me. So there's a lot of talk there about resistance to airflow, static pressure, those kinds of things. The things that they can cause and the reasons why you'd want to go with a filter that does not have a high static pressure. Another conversation topic in that was talking about MERV ratings. MERV is simply a way to do an apples to apples comparison between different manufacturers' filters or different efficiencies of filters using a standard test. The bigger the MERV number, the better the filter is. They're typically going to be from 1 to 16. Most HVAC systems are going to be hopefully 8, a MERV 8 or better. Not going to get into the nuts and bolts of it other than to just quickly give you an idea of the test. So suffice it to say, you're taking a laboratory designed test dust, you're blowing that through the filter, you know how much test dust you started with, you're measuring how much dust came through on the other side. That difference gives you the percentage that you trapped. And they divide that test dust into 3 size ranges. 10 microns to 3 microns is the biggest stuff. 3 to 1 microns is the medium-sized particulate. And then the smallest test dust for the MERV test is 1 micron to 0.3. To give you an idea, the smallest thing a person can see with the naked eye is about 10 microns. So we're assuming with the MERV test that the filter you're using is going to trap stuff that's big enough to see. What we're focused on is how well is it at trapping the smaller stuff as a way to separate out the filters in terms of good, better, best, etc. But there's lots of things that the MERV test doesn't cover. We'll talk about those as we move along through this presentation. A micron is just a micrometer. Another way of saying micrometer is micron. I said smallest thing you can see with the naked eye is about 10 microns. A human hair, there's fine hair and coarse hair. A human hair is about 100 microns in diameter. So that kind of gives you some framework there. I would never get into a conversation about, how big's a bacteria or how big's a grain of pollen. I think that, that's not really going to be productive. I like to use this sort of a comparison. You're putting in a whole home high efficiency air cleaner almost always with equipment change out, new furnace, new air conditioner, new heat pump, whatever it might be. And so you want to make sure that the filter you're putting in has a high enough MERV rating to protect the equipment, to protect that investment. Any of our filters will do that. Then you want a way to separate out MERV 11 from MERV 13, et cetera, et cetera. I would say if you're looking for equipment protection, you want to capture dust, pollen, mold spores, pet dander, those kinds of things, a MERV 11 is going to do that job for you. If you also want to trap bacteria and virus-sized particles, I would step up to the MERV 13. And we'll talk about some additional filter media types that we have later on, but I would keep that conversation simple and straightforward like that. So you can compare two filters in terms of MERV ratings. They're both MERV 11, but there's a lot more to it than that. You need to have a lot of surface area to the media so that it can trap a lot of particulate out of the air without getting plugged. You need media that still is free area for the air to travel through. The more dust you can trap with your filter, the longer you can leave that filter in. A typical 1-inch filter, you're changing it out once a month to maybe once every 3 months. If you wait longer than that, that static pressure is going to be too high, and you're going to start to restrict airflow with all the things that come with that. So let's take a look at some 1-inch filters. These are very popular filters. This information comes from their spec sheets. We're looking at a variety of different filters. Let's focus on the ultimate allergen. At 1200 CFM, it's got a static pressure of 0.21 inches water column. That's its initial static pressure. It's a MERV 12, which is a good MERV rating. Static pressure is a little on the high side. But one of the reasons that people like to use these 1-inch filters, they say they're inexpensive, 17 bucks. But if you're changing that filter out every month or every 3 months, that's quite a bit of money. And remember, that 0.21 is the initial static pressure. If you're running a lot of, let's say, air conditioning calls, that particulate is going to build up in that little filter, and that static pressure is going to climb quite quickly. I like this picture a lot. In the foreground, you can see a foot, and that's holding down the filter media for one of our filters. We've cut the ribbons out and unfurled it like a sidewalk. And then in the background there, you can see a standard, let's say, 16 by 25 inch filter, because it has about 3 square feet of surface area. So that's probably about what that is, as opposed to the AprilAire filter of the same size with 10 times that much surface area. So it stands to reason that if they're the same MERV rating, they're going to trap the same percentage of particulate. We're going to be able to hold a lot more particulate and still not have a restricted filter. That's why we can leave ours in for a full year and still deliver the amount of airflow that the HVAC system needs to efficiently heat and cool the home. Let's compare us to some of our 4-inch media pleated filter competitors. So we've got Model, the pressure drop at 3 tons, 1200 CFM, and then the MERV rating. So AprilAire 1000 series, MERV 11 filter at 3 tons, we're at 0.12 inches water column, which is, if you remember from the previous slides, less than what that 1-inch filter delivered right out of the gate. Comparing us to Carrier, you can see they have a MERV 10 filter, not as efficient, but their static pressure is higher. And you can see that that goes across the board. AprilAire has made a focus of our filter media design to be the lowest static pressure in the industry. Even our MERV 16 filters have very low static pressure. Our MERV 16 filters have comparable static pressure to other companies' MERV 11. Let's watch another video here.
So one of the things that we use this particular demonstration and setup for in our training room is to show our technicians, really to make them believe, hey, this is the difference in the static pressure drop between your standard 1-inch filter here and your media cabinet. So we can actually take one or the other out and measure the static pressure differences across the 1-inch versus our 4-inch media cabinet to really get our technicians to believe and say, wow, you know, and you can actually hear the difference in the fan when you have the 4-inch media in versus the 1-inch media. So it really builds belief in our technicians that this is good for our customers. Another thing that I really like about the AprilAire media cabinet is the ability to private label it, and this is a perfect opportunity for us to put, you know, our name, our logo, our phone number, our website, and any other additional information. We found that it's been quite powerful for us to keep our name in the customer's home.
All right. Just to drive home that message of our filters having the ability to hold a lot of particulate and still have good free area, so good free flow of air through it. Here's a filter that was left in for a little over 2 years, 2 years and a month. And you can see how dirty that filter got. Yeah, no, that's not a carbon filter. That should be your standard white filter. The key here isn't how loaded and gross it is. It's that the consumer did not notice any difference in the noise levels of their HVAC system, the throw of the air in cooling mode, or the ability to heat and cool to their satisfaction. So that's an impressive testimonial. To kind of focus in on that idea of how dirty things can get inside the system, here's a really good quote, I think. According to the U.S. Department of Energy, you can improve your air conditioner's energy consumption by 10% to 20% just by replacing a dirty, clogged filter and keeping the evap coil clean. 10 to 20%. And this is from David Richardson from NCI. He states how the blower loses significant airflow capacity trying to move air even with small amounts of dirt buildup on the blower blades. He estimates that even an eighth of an inch of buildup on a blower blade can reduce fan capacity by 30%. So let's think about that. That means a 360 CFM loss on a 3-ton system. That's almost a ton of airflow lost on a 3-ton system. That means 180 CFM loss with merely a 1/16 of an inch buildup on a blower wheel. And that's because the curvature of the vanes in a blower wheel cause the dust to accumulate in the cup of that curved blade. So it starts to flatten that blade out. It becomes more like a paddle slapping the air instead of cupping the air. It just changes the physics of that centrifugal blower. And I'm not going to dwell on this. There's lots of bad filtration strategies out there. You can see you've got material that's not very good at trapping particulate. You've also got installations that allow a lot of dirty air to bypass around that filter. So clearly you need a way to hold that filter in place, a good cabinet. And this just drives home the idea that your HVAC system, even if it's properly sized with manual J, if it can't deliver the air it needs, you've reduced its ability to, for example, cool, both in terms of airflow as well as energy transfer. I think it's important to remember a dirty evaporative coil is going to cause an insulating effect, not just airflow reduction, but it's going to reduce the ability to cool the air down because it's insulating that heat transfer. And again, you've seen pictures like this. I think these are powerful when you're talking to a consumer. So the MERV rating, MERV 11, MERV 13, what have you, only speaks to its ability to trap particulate of a certain size ranges. It has nothing to do with longevity of life or how much dirty air can sneak around that filter. Our filters with the self-seal media and the plastic rails that attach to the metal guides give you a very, very tight seal around the perimeter of the filter. The self-seal collapses so you can't get really any dirty air around the back or the front. And of course, the plastic rails that attach the filter to the cabinet, you're not going to get any dirty air sneaking around that. That's just too convoluted of a path. And so we can say we have 1 to 2 CFM. Not 1 to 2%, but 1 to 2 CFM. That's amazing. That means the air has to go through the filter. That's the point of that. And if it has to go through the filter, it gets filtered. There's a lot of data on this slide. I don't want to spend a lot of time on it, but this is simply showing how often people are changing the filters when they have a central air conditioning system. And we know there's a lot of 1-inch filters out there. You've got 24% of the people, 1 in 4, changing it every month or maybe more frequently. And then you've got about 1/3 of the people that are changing it out 4 times a year. We know those filters are probably loaded and probably restricting airflow by that point. And we know all the impacts of that. The higher the static pressure, you get higher airflow noise, reduced airflow, which is going to affect throw, especially to those distant rooms. It's also going to affect your ability to heat and cool the home, just period. Your heat exchanger can get hotter and your coil can get colder. If you have a variable speed system, of course, one of the reasons you have a variable speed system is that it can run very, very slowly to deliver the exact amount of air you need. If you're restricting the airflow, that variable speed system will ramp up. I mean, that's one of the reasons guys put them in. But if you've got it so restrictive that it's running at 100%, you've kind of defeated the whole point of that variable speed system in the sense of it's running much, much higher RPMs than it needs to. And so a lot of those energy savings have been reduced. Not all, certainly, but a lot. All right, let's jump into our air cleaner lineup here. A couple features on the cabinet. All the cabinets are UL classified and the media is too. One of the cabinet design things to look at is our cabinet's made out of heavy gauge steel, and it's got that cross member which allows it to support 400 pounds. Why would you need this? In a lot of installations, the HVAC system is in a vertical upflow. The HVAC system is sitting on top of the air cleaner itself. So our cabinets can support that weight evenly distributed like you would with an air handler. The doors have some features to allow them to be attached correctly, securely, and have a nice perimeter seal. We'll take a look at that. So you've got those plastic guides. Doors get installed on air cleaners in low light situations. It's nice to have those 4 corner plastic posts to help you get the door on correctly. You've got those metal tabs that exert some lateral force to keep the door on tightly. And you've got that perimeter gasket so that when the blower's running, the door is on the negative side of the blower, it's going to suck that door on even tighter. And so you get very little blow-by of dirty air around the filter, and you get very, very little air being pulled in around the door. It's an important thing to think about. These are in unconditioned spaces. You want to make sure that you've got an installation that's not pulling that crawl space or attic air, or suppose even garage air, or in many places, even the basement air is not particularly nice, into that HVAC system. If you are using UV lights, either UVA or UVC, whether germicidal or odor reducing, that plastic has a black material in it that makes it UV resistant. And as always, we want to steer the consumer back to the contractor to know where to get their AprilAire media from. Lots of sizes. I'm not going to go into that. Suffice it to say, we have the size for the cabinets that you put in. You can certainly call our tech support group or your AprilAire DSM, and they can talk to you about what size filters you use and what cabinets we would have available in those sizes. As you can see, we have anything from 16 by 20, all the way up to 31 by 28. We also offer a 2000 series, which is a painted cabinet, and those come with MERV 13 filters. One thing I want to point out here, I want to stop here for a second. You're going to put in whatever cabinet size your nominal filter is. So let's say you put in a lot of 16 by 25 filters. You're going to put in a 16 by 25 AprilAire air cleaner cabinet. Depending on what model you get, 1000 or 2000 series, it's going to come with a filter that's MERV 11 or MERV 13. But it's important to remember that we have several other filter media sizes that can be slipped into that same cabinet. So maybe you buy all 1000 series cabinets, the unpainted ones. Those come with MERV 11, but there's no reason why down the line you couldn't upsell the consumer to a MERV 13 to get better particulate removal, or even a MERV 13 with carbon to trap odor and VOCs. Those are chemicals, volatile organic compounds in the air. Or even, if the HVAC system is designed to be able to handle it, a MERV 16 filter. So let's take a look at our MERV 15, our 1510 air cleaner cabinet. This is our large air cleaner cabinet, 31 inches by 28. It's designed for very, very low pressure drop. So this could be a 5-ton system or a geothermal system where they have very large return openings. But I wouldn't limit it just to that. This can also be used in any situation where you need to have very low pressure drop. At 2000 CFM, 5 tons, we're only at 1/10 of an inch, 0.1 inches water column at a MERV 11. That's industry-leading low static pressure. You're not going to find a MERV 11 filter that has that low of a static pressure. You might say, well, I don't really have a way to install that on my system. So let's take a look at some options here. Here's a standard vertical upflow air handler, but the return has been modified to accommodate that much taller 1510 cabinet. So the return has been cut open, the return drop has been cut open to span the opening side of the 1510, and then the HVAC system has been placed on top of a plenum box. So you've got the side of the plenum box open and the top of the plenum box open, so that when the HVAC blower is pulling air in, you've got air traveling through the full height of the filter, the 1510 filter, but you've also got it wide open on the side and the bottom of the HVAC cabinet. Let's talk about our easy install, 1610 and 1620. Those are just different sizes, nominal 16 by 25 inch and nominal 20 by 25 inch. These are designed to make it easier for you to, when you're doing equipment changeout, for example, to add in a wider cabinet. So if you had a 1-inch filter slot, there's not a lot of room between the return drop and the HVAC cabinet. This has incorporated into it, it ships just like you see there, incorporated into it that right angle boot, that transition, to make it easy to attach your return drop to the air cleaner cabinet without having to make a lot of modifications, or maybe in many cases no modifications other than cutting it to the return drop. There are tabs across the top perimeter that you can bend up or leave down to change the size of the return opening. You can also swap the door with a blank off plate, so you can have the door in the front or the back, which gives you a left or right return. Here's some pictures showing minimal modification to the return drop to accommodate a much wider filter because of that incorporated boot into that design. This is pictures from one of the training installs we do. All of our tech support people install all of our products. Here you can see removing the 1-inch filter and its transition, and then sliding into that same space with just a little bit of cutting of that return drop. You can see we've just had to stub it out to have it match up with the top of that right angle easy install cabinet. And then you can see it's pretty straightforward just to secure it with foil tape. And of course we used a beta caulk on the attachment point from the cabinet to the 1610 air cleaner. Gives you now the ability to slide in a much wider pleated filter. Sometimes there's enough wiggle in the return drop that you can just add in a canvas or vinyl connector. Typically these are used for vibration dampening or sound dampening, but they give you a little bit of flexibility to very easily attach that return drop to the top of the air cleaner, again, with minimal modification to the return drop. All right, switching gears a little bit, I want to talk about the new Filter Grille for 2019. If you're in a part of the country that does not have returns in every room except for the bathrooms and kitchen, you have just one or maybe two very large returns in the home, we've come out with a filter grill for those applications. The difference here is our filter grills allow you to use a MERV 11 or MERV 13 filter in that space. You can see we have 16 by 25 and 20 by 25 nominal. And the key difference here is because we're using our pleated filter, you have very, very low static pressure. And so you can actually use a much smaller filter size, a much smaller opening, and still get the correct amount of return air being pulled into the system. That makes the installation easier. You don't have as many filter grills, and you don't have as large a filter grills in the home to give you that same airflow coming back to the HVAC system, while still filtering it with the MERV 11 or MERV 13 filter. And you can see once it's in place, you just swing the door down, slide the pleated filter out, and put the new one in, just like with the current ones. Model of 5000 electronic air cleaner. Don't want to spend a lot of time on this. been a very good performer for us over the years. If you have a customer that needs to trap as much out of the air as they possibly can, this is equivalent to a MERV 16 with very low static pressure. So now we offer a true MERV 16 media filter, which has a slightly higher static pressure, of course, because you're using a MERV 16 media. But we also offer the Model 5000, which is an electronic air cleaner, which gets you approximately a MERV 16 performance. Again, you can't do the MERV test because of the electronics. That's true with anybody's electronic air cleaner. But when we look at the efficiency at trapping at different percentages and sizes, it would fall into that MERV 16 category with a much lower pressure drop. So 2 options. If you have any detailed questions about that, give our tech support group a call or call your AprilAire district manager. They'll be happy to talk to you. This is true with any of our air cleaners. I just want to make sure as you're planning out where it's going to go, make sure you've got sufficient distance to pull that filter media out. I've seen more than a few jobs where they found a great place for the cabinet, and when it goes time a year later to change that filter out, they can get the door off no problem, but they have a bit of a challenge getting that filter out. There's could be something as simple as a natural gas black pipe stub there, or a pipe, or what have you. It's just a little bit too close or a little bit in the way. We've had a lot of acceptance and excitement about our redesigned air cleaner cabinets. And so a lot of contractors really like the simplified design where you don't have the pleat spacers and the inner housing, like you did with our old Space Guard 2200 and 2400. But we know there's a lot of Space Guards out there. So what we've done is we've designed a couple upgrade kits, the 1213 and the 1413, to allow you to upgrade a 2200 to a 2400. I'm sorry, upgrade a 2200 or a 2400 to use our current pleated filter media. So you take out the pleat spacers, throw them away. Take out the inner housing, throw them away. Put in this metal framework. It's just 6 pieces like you see there into the cabinet. You'll lock it into place by bending a tab down. And now that allows the old Space Guard to now use our current filter. So you can go from a MERV 10, which is what they used to have, to a MERV 11, a MERV 13, a MERV 13 with carbon, or even a MERV 16 if the system will handle that. And it again gets them back to buying that filter from the HVAC channel. That Space Guard upgrade kit has been incredibly popular, and so based on contractor demand, we have created a competitive upgrade kit offering. So rather than have different size filters for York and Carrier and Trane and Honeywell and everybody else, we offer a competitive upgrade kit. There's 2 sizes, 4897 or 4898. These are universal competitive kit upgrade kits. You can see that they have an oval channel with a thumb screw so that you can make those minor adjustments, because everybody's 16 by 25 or 20 by 25 is just a little bit different. This allows you to get a good perimeter seal, a good fit with that filter in the existing competitive cabinet. And it'll fit all these competitive cabinets and competitive filters. Here's a couple actual pictures from some service guys' trucks. The one on the right, okay, we're going out to change filters. So you've got literally a pallet there of cake box filters, and you can see, I'm sure you've all experienced this, but you can see some of those filters are crushed, they're damaged. You're not going to be able to install those when you get out there, so that's just a waste of your time, taking up space that could have been used for something else. Once you put the upgrade kits in, you're using AprilAire air cleaners. Those ship collapsed, like you see there in that box. That collapsed box makes them very, very robust. You can step on them. It's not going to damage the filter. And, of course, they're a lot less susceptible to having a screwdriver punch through them. So about one 20 by 25 filter, cake box style, takes up the room of 6 of our collapsed filters. And then here are the competitive models. Again, 4897 fits two sizes, nominal 16 by 25 or nominal 20 by 25. And then you have a MERV 11 offering or a MERV 13 offering in each of those sizes. So if you put in predominantly 16 by 25 and 20 by 25, 4897 is your rail kit. And then you just decide if you need a MERV 11 or MERV 13 and then order the appropriate media. And we can help you with that. Just give us a call. We've also come out with a much smaller size upgrade kit for those smaller cabinets, 20 by 20 down to 16 by 20. Same idea, adjustable to fit those two cabinet sizes. And then you pick your appropriate filter MERV rating. We still have, even though we haven't made them in a long time, we still have lots of people that love their space guards with their pleat spacers and their 201 and 401 media. We continue to offer those. We'll continue to offer them as long as the market demands it. It's a good quality MERV 10 filter with incredibly low pressure drop because you have over 70 square feet of surface area. So if your customers still have those, we still make those. They're still available. In the current product family, you can see we've got lots and lots of different sizes, and so we've gone to a color scheme to help differentiate them. Makes it easier at a glance to tell what air filter you've got in terms of size or in MERV rating. All of our filter media have a 1-year change out except for the MERV 16 because of the high static pressure. You have to use a very restrictive material to give you a MERV 16 media filter. And also, there's only a 6-month change-out cycle on our carbon units. And that's not because of pressure drop. You can see it's still pretty low. That's because the carbon, the activated charcoal, gets used up. It's bonded to all the odors and chemicals that it can after about 6 months. All of our air cleaner cabinets come with this card here. It's a 2-sided piece for the consumer. This talks about our clean coil guarantee. You've got a nice picture there comparing a dirty A coil and a clean A coil. Even if a consumer doesn't know what they're looking at exactly, the one on the left looks yucky. They get that. They want the one on the right. The point is we're illustrating if you put in an AprilAire air cleaner cabinet and put in AprilAire media every year, if that coil needs cleaning within that 10-year period, we will pay $100 towards the cost of that air cleaning. If you ever have a claim on that, we haven't had very many. I think maybe 3, very, very small number. Give your AprilAire DSM a call or call into tech support, and they'll be happy to walk you through that process. Thank you very much for your time. I'm sorry about that technology glitch there. I know that the screen was visible at the beginning, so I'm not sure what happened. We'll take a look and see. I apologize. I'm going to leave this slide up with our toll-free number and our partners website, AprilAirePartners.com. This is a contractor-only website designed for HVAC contractors. It'll have, training videos, these webinars, spec sheets, installation manuals. It's also where you go for partners in comfort information, co-op, ordering literature, imprinted literature, all those kinds of things, promotional materials, those kinds of things. So thank you very much for your time. Hopefully that video wasn't down for very long, but I do apologize for that. Thank you very much for your time and enjoy the rest of your day.